Thanks, Tom. Can you give me, just for everyone that's watching, your name, your title, and responsibilities?
Sure. I'm Tom Bick. I work for Oscar Mayer. I'm the Senior Director of Advertising and Integrated Marketing. And I work on Oscar Mayer brands and Lunchables.
And you won an Effie, so congratulations.
Yeah.
Say it with bacon.
Hopefully the gold, right? Nothing but gold
Right,
on bacon.
Right. So tell me, what was a key motivator or insight or behind that idea?
Yeah, so funny enough, the original brief to my digital agency was we needed to support our bacon sort of broadcast idea, and we needed to support it with a product campaign. It was really a credentialing campaign. You know, the issue we have is that our bacon sells for about $1 more per pound than our competition. And people are asking, you know, why $1 more? Is it worth $1 more? And what's the substantiation behind that? So the original brief was actually kind of limiting in the sense that we said we want to have a credentialing campaign for our bacon to justify the $1 more. And oh, by the way, we only have limited funds. So that was the original brief. The insight was that our product, we always looked at our product. We have what we call the 4 C's of bacon. Our researchers actually identified that consumers would look at bacon at the store and actually sort of research it, almost as if they're looking at a diamond. And you know, this was sort of a magical moment. We included that in the brief, the 4 C's of bacon being color, cut, consistency, and the cure. And but we never really did much more with it. So that was in the brief, and 360i, my digital agency, when they saw that, they just took that and ran with it, and they came up with the brilliant idea of Say It With Bacon.
What does it mean to have a partner like that? You know, it sounds like they're a good one, and there's a lot of team effort behind a good campaign. Yeah,
it you know, the main thing as a good client, you know, I do believe clients get the work they deserve, and if you point them in the right direction and then give them breathing room and let them do what they do so well, they will make you look brilliant. You know, all we did is point them in the right direction. They came up with the ideas, and we were smart enough not to kill the brilliant idea.
Winning an Effie's, it's about marketing effectiveness. How do you define it? What is marketing effectiveness to you?
You know, bottom line, marketing effectiveness means we're selling product, but it's so much more, right? Because you can sell product sort of in a pedestrian manner, and you can sell it in a brilliant fashion. And so for me, marketing effectiveness goes beyond ROIs. It goes beyond just moving cases at retail. I think marketing effectiveness has to be brilliant. Advertising that engages, that defines its space, that builds the brand long term, while still moving cases. So you got to have both. It's not an either or sort of discussion to me. It's about doing it, but doing it with a little panache and doing it with some elegance.
Well, let's talk about Tom.
All right.
And you've achieved quite a bit of success in your career. Is there anything that fuels you personally?
That's a great question. You know, marketing to me is it's the only branch or area in the business world where I think it's about the humanity quotient. It's about engaging with people. It's about pursuing passion. So for me, the driving force has always been do something brilliant. We have the ability to make connections with consumers. It's not about, you know, I think I'd be lousy at finance or accounting or pick the other areas of business. Quite frankly, it's not about cutting, you know, the deal or negotiating a deal. It's about how do I take something and connect with a human being. So for me, what drives me is I get to wake up every day and think about how am I going to do something that's really interesting enough that I can be welcomed into people's lives and homes. So what's the story we tell? What's the advertising that people want to talk about? You know, if you keep that front and center, that will make you successful. If you start to overthink it and start to worry about just ROI, I think you lose sort of what's engaging.
What are there brands that you look to or brands that you like that, and what is it that you like about them, or why do you follow?
You know, I Actually, I'm concerned in this area. I don't think there's been a lot of great marketing lately. I think the brands, if I think about great brands, work that comes to my mind more recently is Dos Equis. I love Dos Equis. I love Old Spice, what they're doing. But Dos Equis to me is really interesting. I spent 12 years in the beer industry, and so that's a space that I love. I think there's a dearth of great of work, or great work in this space. And to me, what was interesting is the Dos Equis, when they introduced the world's most interesting man, which is so wonderful. That year, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, the whole industry was down in sales, declining sales. All the big American brewers were down in sales. And if you look at what they were doing, they were sort of pursuing sort of one-dimensional product advertising, in my opinion. And along comes Dos Equis, and you could say it's this pure image-based campaign. And I think the year they launched that, it was they were up 7% in sales. So not only is it brilliant and fun to watch and something you want to share and creative, it's highly, highly effective.
What suggestions, as it relates to building a good brand, would you have for others?
I think the pendulum swings. It doesn't have to be an either-or decision. To build a brand, you need to look at the short term and you need to drive sales, but you need to look at long term and you need to look at the equity in the brand as well. Now, how do you do that? I think it is about enduring, engaging storytelling. It is about big ideas, not little ideas. It's about finding a platform that connects you to the human condition. What is your real brand purpose long term? So that takes a little soul searching. And a clear understanding of what business you're really in. It's not just about a product feature, because product features come and go, and you'll have competitive advantages in the short term, and you'll lose them in the long term. But great brands endure because they understand their rightful place in your home or my home. And once you identify that, and then you engage with that idea in a compelling manner, in elegant storytelling and not selfish advertising, I think you have at least a chance to build an enduring brand.
How important do you think research is, as you're trying to understand these equities? Yeah,
this is a controversial area. I say this because I have a love and hate relationship, and anybody who knows me knows this at Kraft Foods and Oscar Mayer, and my background is in research. I came out of the research field. I spent 6 years as a consumer researcher at Miller Brewing Company, and then I was a planner at an agency for a while. So I have great respect for research. If done properly. The problem with research is usually that it's not the tools. Every tool has a limitation, but you need to understand the limitations of your tools. And research, where it breaks down, is the interpretation. So you have a great researcher, they know how to interpret and connect the information, tell the broader story, and not get lost in the one study or the other study. When research goes awry, it's used as a weapon to kill great ideas, and that's the fear. We all can afford, and we're all great companies. We can all go out and buy research. And if we're all using the same playbook, so to speak, right, then what's the competitive advantage? We all sort of regress towards the mean. And that's the problem. You need to know when to read the tea leaves, which is, I think, what research gives you. It sort of gives you sort of clues. How do you connect those clues and how do you use it appropriately? But don't let it dictate and drive what you're doing. Use it appropriately as a tool to guide.
Do you think there's any new methods or new takes on research? Yeah,
what I'm most intrigued with right now is, one of my concerns has always been the cognitive bias that you have with self-report or survey data and things of that nature. Questions like how persuasive was this advertising is to me a silly question. I don't think people know why they're persuaded. So what I love is really the some of the research companies that are sort of tapping into the latest neuroscience and sort of trying to figure out how do you bridge that and sort of how do you get at what's really going on subconsciously within consumers. So there are companies out there that do that. And I think that's the next sort of area to really sort of plumb for real insight.
What do you see as the most important marketing trend or opportunity that's out there today?
Well, I'll tell you which one concerns me the most.
Uh-oh.
And it's an opportunity too, but it's whoever figures out and bridges, there are two sort of schools out there right now. You'll hear a lot about big data and a lot of pundits of big data. And it is, every article or every other article out there is about big data, mining big data. And big data is important. Mm-hmm. But there's also big brand. And how do you build, the big brand ideas and big M sort of marketing or big idea marketing? Nobody's really talking about how those two intersect. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. Big data is talking about how do you drive down to a one-to-one relationship and find what's most important to the individual. But it could come at the expense of what's the brand idea. Big brand building's about what's the universal truth and the human sort of condition, and what's the solve that we have that is a shortcut, right? That we can just sort of find the common ground, both culturally and from a consumer insight. So what are these big unifying ideas? Coke is joy, and that's a big idea versus a small idea. My fear is that big data could drive us down to almost sort of a very sophisticated direct response model, and we could lose sight of, the dream or the bigger sort of power behind what marketing really can be in building brands. So whoever, you have to do both, but we have to find the intersection of the two. Mm-hmm. And I don't find a lot of people talking about that. I think it's a convenient sort of, there's a convenient lack of discussion around this area of like, what is marketing? Is it direct response or is it big brand building?
We've seen a lot of organizations just swimming in their big data, not really knowing how to process it. And, at the end of the day, you're trying to make a decision, right?
Right.
And I'm just curious, you have any thoughts on how do you make better decisions?
Yeah, and as a packaged good company, we're probably not on the cutting edge of big data right now. I've worked in insurance and I've worked in other areas where big data actually, you could see the application of it because there's an e-commerce element to it. So you can see how you can customize information or get to different sort of messaging points on a one-to-one basis. I think that's the big question. Big data has to do more than just identify that, I'm a Packer fan and, by this, I'll serve up a direct, a sort of a display ad that has "Go Packers, eat more bacon," and that's not compelling in the least. So we're working through it. I don't think we have the answer. We are definitely investing a lot of time and money and effort into big data. I think there are some quick and easy, low hanging fruit areas that we can sort of get to, but I don't know. The full use of big data is still a question for for us. We're looking to others to help us to get there, but it's certainly a big investment for Kraft.
How's the marketing organization evolving, and what do you see 5, maybe 10 years out? Are there big changes coming?
I think the definitely more data savvy people, right? So we can't be afraid of data and big data. I think that there's that side. I think there's this voracious appetite for content as we keep fragmenting media, as we keep always on media and in the social space. We find that we have to do so much more. I'm doing 3-4 times as much content creation, I think, than even 4 years ago. So we have to address that because you can only do so much. And I think the other area is that we'll struggle with a bit is you can't treat everything like a big production anymore. So how do you create relevant, high quality content on an ongoing basis that doesn't break the budget, that still has an ROI? And so we're looking at different ways to deal with that, whether it's bringing some things in-house, whether it is, working with different partners. So there's that piece of it. So there's the data savviness, there's the content creation, and so I think we're staffing up a bit for that.
So as you think about working with partners, what makes a good partner, or what are the things that you need to be cognizant of these days?
I think as a good partner, as a creative partner, you have to set the environment for your partners, for the agency, to go out and do what they do best, which is swing for the fences. Address the brief, but give them enough latitude to really do what they do well, which is bring creative firepower. Too many people, I think, operate out of this sense of fear. Ideas get marginalized quickly. We look at the industry and we try to follow the industry versus saying, I'm a brand that stands head and shoulder, maybe above the industry. I'm not going to follow the conventions. And so be brave. Swing for the fences. It's just advertising. It's not like don't kill the brand. Don't be stupid. But, advertising is meant to be consumed. You need to engage. If it's not in the top 10%, it's probably not worth talking about anything else. It's not worth talking about the ROIs and the studies, because average is failure, in my opinion. So that, swing for the fences, be brilliant, be brave.
I'm going to use that. Average is failure. It's awesome.
Not at my annual review. My boss will reconsider at that point. But
great thoughts.
Yeah, thank you.
So as you think about, you said ROI, it's a loaded concept, but along with that is marketing mix. Right?
Yeah, and my favorite topic.
So tell me, how are you thinking about marketing mix? How is it shifting for you? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, well, there is hope, right? We're working on what we sort of instead of point in time studies, we're looking at longitudinal studies, what we call like multi-touch attribution models, where how do things interact over time, right? Versus just sort of I pull this lever and I get this reaction in the same week. So really, the goal is follow one person or follow a number of individuals over 3 months or 6 months, and see what interactions they're really having. So how does TV work with digital? How does it work with print? How does it work over 2, 3, 4 weeks? That's the real, I think, goal for us. And if we see that and we can match that, those sort of behavioral sort of interactions with creative, and then match it to shopping cart information over time, then now we have, I think, a better picture versus just the simple regression models that we use in point in time to measure ROI. And that's been, I think, historically the issue for a lot of packaged good consumers, because we know we're building loyalty, we know we're building repeat purchase, but we're not measuring it in most of our models. So I think that's important. I think the other way to look at ROI is not just the marketing mix models, but it is about, do you command a price premium at retail? What is the price elasticity curve of your product or brand versus somebody else's, right? There are ways to value brands, but in the day-to-day fray of things, sometimes those conversations get pushed to the side. So it is a real struggle, As the ad director, I tend to be a bully. I tend to fight and defend for what I believe in, and hopefully I can substantiate it with some of the data and information. But you also have to have knowledge based on years of fighting the fight.
So what do you see as the future of understanding understanding that long-term, short-term dynamic?
I think the future will be some of these single source data, some of the longitudinal studies I'm talking about, some of the multi-touch models that will sort of bear out that, hey, some of these things that we didn't see paying off before are paying out. So I think it'll be that. I also think that great brands tend to there's great marketing out there that always tends to rise to the top. If you really have great ideas and great big brand building ideas, they tend to not need a lot of explaining, right? It's the sales and the correlation to the marketing are self-evident usually. It's usually when you're in the gray areas that we have a lot of discussion about ROIs, but great marketing tends to sort of rise above that.
So digital is a big topic, and there's some people out there that have proposed that eventually we'll all be digital marketers, not brand marketers, but digital marketers as our primary focus. How do you feel about that hypothesis?
I don't know if I know what that really means, because it might go back to what I was talking about. I think we can get lost in that space. I think at the end of the day, what are brands? Right? Brands are an emotional promise about an expectation of an experience. How do you build that? Is it going to be transaction based, or is it going to be about sort of the promise of what a brand is? And so I think there will be brand builders, and there'll be transactionally based marketing. The two will coexist. but I don't think I think things will go digitally. I think it'll be in service of building the brand. So I don't see I don't think I quite understand the distinction.
So stepping back from Oscar Mayer, from bacon, although again, it's really hard to step away from bacon.
We have hot dogs and hard salami and all sorts of.
But if you take yourself all the way back, if you were to do it all over again, what would you change? Yeah. Would you go into marketing? Or would you do something else?
Well, I'm not sure. I still didn't get into medical school. No, I would. Honestly, I, as a marketer, as a person who loves what they do, I think I would have started my career sooner by going into the advertising side of things. I would have jumped into the ad agency world between undergrad and graduate school and done 2, 3 years or 4 years. I think you get such a wonderful experience that you don't get from the client side right away. And that's one thing I would have done. I was fortunate enough to spend 12 years in the beer industry, which is a fast-moving, high-image sort of area, which is fascinating. And I think that really taught me a lot. So I would never change that. I loved that. And I would probably not say half the crap that I say. I'd probably burn some bridges. I'm very opinionated. And so maybe I would change that piece. But other than that, no, I wouldn't do anything any differently. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much and for sitting down with us and sharing today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.